Okay, so many of you have sent me this Gina Carano lawsuit and told me to look over it. Before we start, I want you to see how the internet is so divided over this one. Look at some of the responses to the announcement that Gina Carano was suing Disney for wrongful termination.
Gina Carano and Elon Musk are suing Lucasfilm and Disney for discrimination due to Gina Carano's wrongful termination.
Another video, and today we do have a car video, and it's a big time video because Gina Carano has just announced on Twitter or X that she is filing a lawsuit against Disney and Lucasfilm. I'm a fan of Gina Carano. I consider her almost a friend at this point in time. We definitely know each other. I was just visiting with her.
Gina Carano is a D-list, talentless nobody in the business who was in one movie where they had to overdub her entire voice because she was that bad. She was in another movie, Deadpool, where she literally had like 6 lines. And then the heavens smiled down on her and she got a role in Mandalorian, which, by the way, I like her in The Mandalorian. Just for the record, I thought she was good in The Mandalorian.
So now you saw how everybody's reacting to the lawsuit. So I went directly to the documents to see what is going on with this Gina Carano lawsuit. Now, most of the other people are going to tell you about what they read about the lawsuit, but here we go straight to the document. Let's see what she's actually asking for. Okay, so let's start with Gina Carano is alleging. First, she's alleging wrongful discharge, as you can see on the screen, under California Labor Code 1101. Now, essentially what this is saying is that they fired me because I expressed a political belief on Twitter. So that's her first cause of action. Now, her next claim is wrongful discharge and refusal to rehire, essentially retaliation because of her political beliefs. We'll go into that claim as well. And in her last cause of action, Gina Carano is claiming that the company discriminated against her based on her sex because her male co-stars were saying similar things and they were not fired, while when she said it, she was fired. So now at this point, we know the causes of action, but now we also want to try to understand the law. What makes something political activity? What's illegal in California, right? There's always some context to it. So before we jump into the facts of the lawsuit, let's just understand California law when it pertains to this particular issue. Here's a California attorney who's here on YouTube explaining it.
California Labor Code Section 1101 prohibits retaliating against employees for engaging in a political activity. So if an employer reprimands, disciplines, suspends, demotes, or terminates an employee for engaging in that type of activity, for engaging in a political activity, that would be illegal. A common question in these types of disputes, in these types of cases, is whether the activity that that employee engaged in is in fact a political activity. And there are a number of cases out there that would guide you in the right direction and would answer this question by way of examples. Some of the common activities that are protected, for which it would be illegal to retaliate, are advocating a certain political view or advocating for a particular candidate that is running, who is running for the office, or advocating against a certain political idea or against a candidate, whether you do it in person or whether you do it online.
So now we all understand that in California, you can't punish your employees for their political speech. So at this point in time, Gina Carano's case seems very strong. And I think it is strong when it turned in terms of whether she was fired based on her political speech versus her being fired for some other reason that we just don't know about. And then also, I think when it comes to the sex discrimination claim, because Gina Carano has also made an argument that the men at the company were being treated differently than her as a woman. For instance, she made posts that were objectionable, and they also made posts that were objectionable, and they were kept on while she was fired. And we're going to look at all that in a second. So right now, let's turn to the lawsuit. Now, the lawsuit is 59 pages, and in this lawsuit, you'll see Gina Carano explain her moving up within the industry. You'll also see her explain how she was harassed online, which happens to all actresses, right? From the Little Mermaid actress to Gina Carano. It seems like if you're an actress in Disney, you're going to be harassed online. But we're going to kind of just skip over all that and get right to the details about her claims of being fired for her political viewpoint. Now, the lawsuit states that on February 10th, 2021, Gina Carano created this post which caused all the fuss. So I'm going to play a news report about this Gina Carano post.
One of the biggest shows on Disney Plus is parting ways with one of its popular actresses. The Mandalorian has officially dropped Gina Carano's character over controversial social media posts. The 38-year-old actress's online activity has gathered some criticism in the past, like one tweet mocking face masks, but her most recent post compared Republicans to Jewish people during the Holocaust. A Lucasfilm spokesperson calls the comments, quote, unacceptable, telling The Hollywood Reporter there are no longer any plans to include her character in any Star Wars show going forward.
On February 9th, Gina reposted a message to her Instagram story that seemingly likened the experience of being politically conservative today to the plight of Jewish people during the Holocaust. Gina deleted the post, but by the time it was taken down, it was already being reshared by other users. Her most controversial post comes months after she mocked wearing masks in a tweet, and in that same month, perpetuated the false narrative of voter fraud affecting the presidential election. In September, Gina changed her Twitter bio to read boop bop beep, which was perceived as some as mocking social media users who included their preferred pronouns. When asked why users were criticizing her, Gina later admitted, they're mad because I won't put pronouns in my bio to show my support for trans lives.
So now exactly what you heard there is exactly what's laid out here in this lawsuit. Now, here is the post that Gina Carano put out. Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that you get to a point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews. The government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? So this post is comparing someone who may be liberal to Jews being exterminated by the Nazis. I think if she would have said something, maybe communism or some other political thing where people were being prosecuted for their political beliefs, that may have gone over well. But I think this is a dumb analogy, which I understand the analogy she's trying to make, but the analogy is a dumb analogy. Comparing people who the state was trying to eradicate to someone having a different political opinion than yours, it doesn't add up. But that doesn't mean she doesn't have the right to make that statement. So now, after we scroll down to the next line, this line I think is very important to this whole lawsuit because it says Carano made no mention of a political party or a particular point of view and compared no one or group of people to the Jewish people during the Holocaust. Rather, she noted the danger that arises when one point of view is singled out for harassment. Now, I think this is important because that's all true. Right? She didn't say conservatives or liberals. It was, hey, we shouldn't treat people like this. So she wasn't really giving a political point of view in that way. But as you saw earlier from the news reports, they just assumed that she was comparing conservatives in America today and their political opinions to Jews in Nazi Germany based on the harassment. So that is a subjective belief about what was being said, right? It was all subjective. Some people took it one way, some people took it another way, and she's saying that, hey, if you just read it for the words that are there, it doesn't make even mention that conservatives or Jews, even though people took it that way. So now, as we continue down this lawsuit, you'll see how Gina has now laid out some instances of when her male co-stars have been overtly political and said things similar to what she said, and they didn't get fired and they're still working with Disney. First, she points to Carl Weathers, who is a male who's also on the show The Mandalorian. He says, who gets to decide what is appropriate for me or my child to read? The Nazis, okay, so we get another Nazi reference, knew how to both control and eradicate. Interesting. Playbook to emulate. What's next? Who's next? Hashtag be peace. Here is Carl Weathers reposting another tweet. It didn't start with gas chambers. It started with one party controlling the media. Okay, so this sounds a lot like what Gina Carano said, right? One person controlling this point of view, controlling the message, one party deciding what is truth, one party censoring speech and silencing oppression. So this is very much sounding like what Gina was trying to put forward, right? Silencing the other part, dividing citizens into us versus them and calling on supporters to harass them. It started when good people turned a blind eye and let this happen. So Carl Weathers he's putting this stuff out too, and he didn't get fired. So she's saying, why is that? Is it because he's a man? or is it because I'm a woman? Is it because you like his point of view? Or is it because you don't like his point of view? And as you can see, these contrasts get laid out. Now, as we continue with the lawsuit, you'll see she has a lot more of this. Let's continue on. Pedro Pascal, who is extremely pro-left, right? He's probably one of the most left-wing stars out there. He says this. Now, these are overtly political, right? Conservatives use gossip columns and headlines to manipulate city politics in the 40s. And it worked. Let's be better than them. Not that bad. Then he puts up this, right? He makes essentially a Nazi sign with the 45. So that's supposed to be in reference to President Trump, right? Well, again, this is just, this stuff to me is just as bad as the stuff that she was doing. This is just as bad. Here's his post. This is America. Germany, 1944. You see now these people, these children are going to be killed because this is Germany, right? This is Germany in the 40s. They were eradicating the Jewish population. So he's comparing that to America in 2018 when you have people coming across the border and they detain them and put them in these detainment camps. So he's saying that detaining people who send their children across the border alone is the same as the Nazis killing the Jews in 1944. Right? It's you can't avoid this. This is the same thing that Gina Carano was saying. So she's saying that here's more, right? He also has this, losers in the Confederacy, losers in 1945, the Nazis, and comparing, this is clearly comparing Trump supporters, right? If you support Trump, you're a part of the Confederacy and part of the Nazis, right? You're a loser like them. So he's clearly saying the Republican side are Nazis. Gina Carano didn't say that. She didn't say either side were Nazis. She just was saying, hey, if you start discriminating against political opinions, this can lead to this bad effect. So it's clear that Disney is more accepting of this left-wing stuff than of this right-wing stuff. And here's more stuff from Pedro Pascal. Now, she also then talks about Mark Hamill's post. Now, I didn't know Mark Hamill was this politically active on Twitter, but here he goes. I do not see a thing. Republicans against Trumpism. What do you see? So he's essentially comparing conservatives to Nazis, right? So even though Gina Carano didn't directly say that the conservatives were like Jews in Nazi Germany being oppressed, but now it's okay for Mark Hamill and the rest of them to actually call Trump supporters Nazis like what was going on back in World War II. That's essentially. Here is Mark Hamill again. Putin's puppet, KGB for Trump, Kremlin. So he's, again, giving another political viewpoint. Here's another one. It's not official former guy item unless it contains at least one misspelling and or Third Reich imagery. This is obviously official. He's just all over Trump. Mark Hamill again, right? So he is exposing his political beliefs, calling, right? And again, if you notice, one great thing about this is that she has really showed that the men who are in this company have said things that are much worse than her, much more on point, much more obvious. And they are still employed. They have no issues. Where she has said one thing that didn't even clearly say which side she was talking about, and she was fired. So that is her claim of desperate treatment, right? They were treated, she wants to be treated, let me treat me like the men, where they can say whatever they want. They can call as many conservatives or whoever Nazis, and they're fine. If matter of fact, I don't even have to call anybody now to say the word, and I'm fired. So that seems to be her claim. Now, there are issues with this. The first issue, like my friend Good Logic, he said earlier today, he said that the sex discrimination claim may be a little more tenuous because you have to prove that there's no other reason.
I don't think that her claims for sexual discrimination are very strong. And the reason that third claim I don't think is particularly strong is because it's not that hard to distinguish between the statements that were made by Pedro Pascal or Carl Weathers compared to her statements. They each had one-offs as opposed to her having this continuing conflagration going on for a long time. And I think that Disney can very easily distinguish between the public specter as to what happened with those guys compared to what happened with Gina Carano.
And then a lot of some of these other claims are tenuous too, because the company, Disney, is going to say that you saw that media craze about what she had posted, right? We are a company that we have to always worry about our company image. When she made that post, we didn't just come out and say that post was bad. It was the news media and everybody come out, and that negative attention hurt the company, hurt the brand. So that's why we let her go, because again, no one employee can take down the company or hurt the company. And we thought that it was just too much to hurt the company. That's going to be their response. And they would have a point because they're going to play, again, in their thing, they're going to play all those news reports.
We begin with a huge shakeup for one of the most popular shows right now. Mandalorian star Gina Carano has been fired. The news follows a social media post where Carano had implied that being a Republican today is comparable to being Jewish in Nazi Germany.
Gina Carano will not be returning to The Mandalorian or the Star Wars galaxy amid backlash from a social media post the actress shared. On Wednesday, the hashtag Fire Gina Carano was trending online following an Instagram post from the actor implying that being a Republican today is like being Jewish during the Holocaust.
Actor Gina Carano was fired from her role in the breakout Star Wars series The Mandalorian over a string of controversial social media posts. A spokesperson for Walt Disney's Lucasfilm movie studio called her comments, quote, abhorrent and unacceptable.
That's right. Gina Carano, she said this. And then their response to that was, okay, we've let her go. Because people are taking it in public as going too far. But no one, right, Pedro Pascal and all those Mark Hamill and Carl Weathers, all their posts, no one is saying that they should be fired. No, there's no hashtag fire Carl Weathers, hashtag fire Mark Hamill, right? None, that wasn't out there. So that's going to be their argument. It's the market that determined whether she should be fired or not the fact that she posted a political opinion, which she also admits is not a political opinion. So just let me be very plain with my opinion. I hope Gina Carano wins because I think what happened to her is obviously wrong, right? She was expressing her political opinion one way, others were expressing it another way, and Disney obviously pointed to her and said, hey, we're going to punish you for this opinion that we don't like. Now, let me know in the comment section if you think Gina will be successful. I hope she's successful, but as of right now, I'm really 50-50 with this one. I think there are strong points to this lawsuit. I think there may be some weak points to the lawsuit. But again, we're only listening to one side, and this is the complaint. And will you really get the response to this is the motion to dismiss that I'm assuming is going to be forthcoming. And so then you get to compare both sides. Who has the better argument? So right now, again, because I'm only hearing one side, I think Gina Carano's argument is exceptional for the causes of action that she is alleging. And I hope she wins because I think at the end of the day, if you cut off all the BS, they fired her because she had a conservative viewpoint. Even though she didn't explicitly say, I believe conservatives are being, discriminated against, it was implied. And that implication was enough to get her fired. So, I know we can try to read into it and say all that, but that's really what happened here. And if the law is what it is, where you can't fire people based on that reason, then I think she has a good cause of action. So with that said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do all the great YouTube stuff. My name is Dave Delore, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.